next video is about pay for placement advertising, and it's been getting a lot of focus at the moment because of eBay. Now on eBay is known as promoted listings, and a lot of people are focusing on it because it seems to be that eBay is squeezing that for more and more revenue, and that's definitely the case. The reason I'm making a video is from what I've seen, I don't think most people are aware of the scale of this, and that it's not just on eBay, it's on almost every selling platform and social media platform. So I'm talking, as well as eBay, you've got Etsy, Vinted, they're doing it. You've got YouTube, the platform we're on, doing it. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of them are all using this pay for placement tactic. And what's even more important about this is that the revenue reports from these companies for this year are showing they are growing and growing and growing, making more and more revenue from this more than anything else in their business. So it's not going away, and it's important that everyone is aware of the impact of this. And here's why it matters, and why I think it matters anyway. I don't want to sound too preachy, but I do believe this is true. And one of the worst things about the internet, particularly social media, is that people benchmark themselves against people they see online. And when it comes to business, let's look at eBay, for example. A lot of people put out there how much money they're making on eBay. And this is dangerous to some people because the problem is a lot of people look at that and they compare it to their real lives, and it can lead to depression, mental health issues, because they feel like, why am I not being that successful? And when it comes to the social media platforms, it can be even worse because people will see certain people get more views and likes and approval as that comes across, and they don't get it themselves, and they think, well, am I not as likable as my, and all that type of stuff. So it's a really dangerous concept, and I think it's important that people know that there is more that goes on behind the camera, and there's more when you see a business posting financial success or high rate, all this stuff. There's a lot more that goes into it, and it may not be completely organic. Right? It goes beyond that as well, because as we are now getting into this world where pay for placement is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and these companies push it more and more and more, this has a real potential for people who get more and more desperate for sales, likes and engagement, all that type of stuff, that they put more and more money into it and cause financial issues for themselves as well. So all I'm hoping for from this video is that people see the scale of it, see how big it's going to come, prepare for it, and hopefully, even if it's just a few people benefit from it, don't get tangled up in these issues. So let me just introduce myself. I know a few minutes in, I haven't done that yet. I'm Kieran Hughes-Jones. I'm a full-time antiques dealer, and I run taliesinantiques.com. So I do run my own website. However, I do use most of these other platforms on social media and for selling, or I have done in the past as well. I've been doing research into it for my own website as part of that. So I thought I'd share what I found. So let's start for what is pay for placement. So pay for placement is an old concept. Well, it's not that old actually, it's about a couple of decades old. Started with Google. The concept is you pay Google, they rank you higher in the search listings on the search engine. Now that's evolved and other platforms have taken this on. As I mentioned, all those other companies, I'm sure it's much more widespread than that. And what you do now is you pay that platform. Let's use eBay as an example. You pay them a certain amount and they will promote your listing further afield. So they'll put you higher up in search rankings and they will show you as a recommended product to other people. And the amount they do that depends on how much you pay for them. So in practice, what you do when you do a listing on eBay is you fill in the rest as a template. You then have a little pop-up that says promoted listings. What percentage of the sale are you willing to pay eBay to promote your product? And it starts at 2% and it goes way up. I'm not even sure if there is a limit on that. The idea is the more you pay, the more they'll promote. That is exactly the same on TikTok. That shows a little bit differently, but the concept is exactly the same. The more you pay the platform, the more they'll promote your content or your product. Now, all of you who have used this system have probably noticed that what they have is a suggested ad rate as well on all of them. And what they're saying to you is the average ad rate for this is this amount. So if you want to be above average, you need to pay more. And this has just grown and grown and crept more up because it's obvious, isn't it? People are trying to get above average, so the average goes up. Now I'm going to show you a screenshot on screen of something that eBay now, what point that's at. I did a listing a couple of days ago and the suggested ad rate was 25%. I mean, that's bonkers, isn't it? 25% on top of the fees you already pay as a business, which is around 25% when you add it all up. Unbelievable. But it's not just eBay. I say every single platform is doing this, incremental increases. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the revenue that these companies are making this year, right? And what you're going to see is how much growth they're getting from paid replacement ads. So I'm going to go through these companies and I'll show screenshots to show where I got the information from. We'll start with Etsy. So Etsy's revenue is increasing year on year. However, what you're seeing is GMS, which refers to the products being sold on the platform, is actually overall down it was in 2024. However, they're pulling more money out of every sale by selling the visibility paid replacement ads. Now, I know a few of you are thinking, well, that's not the same. That'll be companies paying for advertising. What you will see when you look into it is actually companies paying for advertising on these platforms is dwarfed by the amount of money that sellers and creators are paying for placement. That is the biggest part of their ad revenue by far. So this is a huge, huge earner for them. We'll move on to eBay. So this is information taken from their Q3 financial reporting in 2025, so just in October. Now, eBay actually set aside first-party advertising, and that is referring to mostly promoted listings. And first-party advertising accounted for $496 million of the $5.25 million that they made. And that is the growth of 23 to 25%. So again, eBay's high growth line is not so much based on more things being sold, it's being based on more sellers paying for promoted listings. So now you're starting to see why this is getting squeezed more and more and why you're seeing more and more of it. These companies are pushing you as a seller and creator to spend more and more money on this because simple business terms is where they make most of their money. Now we'll move on to social media companies and why it's important here as well. Because all these social media companies, all they are is big advertising machines. This is without a doubt the case that they'll say it themselves. All their revenue is basically promotion. So TikTok, so their ad revenue in 2024 was $23 billion and it's projected to be $33.1 billion in 2025. This is being driven by people paying for videos to be placed. Simple as that. That's where they're getting most of their money from that ad revenue. We'll move on to the Meta, which is of course the parent company for Facebook and Instagram. So they're showing advertising revenue is $49.7 billion for the quarter, and that's up 26% year on year. The user base is not going up that much either. What's going up is that people, again, are paying for placement. Now we're going to talk about this platform, YouTube. Now I know a lot of you are not YouTube creators, so it may not apply to you, but I guess it's worth knowing. So it might give you a little bit of an idea about why certain things are being recommended to you and some things aren't, if you keep an eye on that. YouTube's ad revenue is $10.3 billion and is up 15%. And this is what they call direct response ads. So what I could do now with this video, I'm not going to, but I could pay YouTube to promote the listing, promote the video rather, and more people will see it as a result. More and more creators are doing that. Okay, so that is becoming a bigger and bigger revenue generator. So the important thing is, we talk about promoted listings. I see a lot of people talking about eBay. I think it's worth noting that they're all doing it, and it's not a side feature. This is front and center of these businesses. Squeezing the creators and the people who use the app is how they're making their money. And what they're doing, let's be perfectly honest, is they're trying to make people desperate, and they're creating systems and pressure in place to make you do it. That's the situation as it is at the moment. All these companies are doing extremely well, making a lot of money from paid for placement ads. So this is all invisible. So you may think that if someone's paid for their content or their listing to be promoted, then it would show on screen as a promotion label. That's not the case. Okay, it's been shown in these audits so that the companies are not doing that. Okay, so what are you to take away from that information? Well, I'll just go back to what I said at the start. If you were seeing people being really successful, whether that be from selling things on eBay, Etsy and all that. Or if you're seeing people, if you're trying to do something on TikTok, YouTube and all, and you're trying to grow a following and you're finding this difficult and you're seeing other people getting more views and more likes and all that type of stuff than you, just take a step back and think about the fact that you don't know what's gone into it. It may not be based just on the quality of what you're doing. Could be a factor. I'm not going to dispute that for a second, but it may be more to it. There's more that goes on behind the camera than you can ever know. So just take that into account. That's all. If there's one thing that people take away from the video, I hope it's that. The other thing is, we are clearly going to be seeing more and more of this. When you see revenue figures like that and you're seeing increases like that, it's going to be becoming a bigger thing. So if you really need to consider about how you want to do that. If you want to spend money on it to get up the listing, you see that as being important, then you have to be responsible and you have to work out how much you can actually afford to lose on that. Risk reward. That's going to be different for everyone, but just putting money into it, because, and a lot of people will, is the sad reality is a lot of people will, because they want the dopamine hit of just seeing, you know, success. They'll see that they'll be overridden by that rather than financial considerations, that they'll do it and they'll end up costing themselves a lot of money as a result. And that's the sad reality of a system like this. Those companies won't see it as their responsibility to stop you doing that. You know, it's like a form of gambling really, but they won't see that as their problem. That's something that every individual is going to have to take personal responsibility for. So the other thing is, I do want to stress as well that I don't know, like organic growth, right? So if you see someone is suddenly getting loads of views and everything, I'm not, also on the flip side of that, I'm not saying that that wasn't organic, that they definitely paid for promotion. They may well have just ticked all the right boxes and then enough people watched them. Organic growth probably can still happen, but the key thing to remember is that's going to get harder and harder to do because there's going to be more and more competition for screen time. And the same on eBay, it's going to be harder and harder to have a successful business on there. Even if it's going well for you now without using promoted listings, that might not be the case the way things are going. You might find that you're slipping more and more down, and that could be a problem. And there are also going to be people whose audiences and following and customer base predates any of this. So they built followings from before promoted listing became a big thing, is, you know, and all that type of stuff. And that's credit to them for getting in first and building that over a certain amount of years. So that's the things that people just need to think about, in my opinion. What can you do about it? What's the best way forward? Well, to be honest, I don't know. I'm not here to tell you the answer on this one. That's something everyone has to work out for themselves. I can tell you what I'm going to do, which is my plan is with my YouTube, with my social media and my, you know, my business as well, is I'm going to try and just work on steady growth. And I'm not going to pay for the promotion. So I'm going to go with small growth. I'll put the YouTube videos out. Hopefully, you know, I've got a nice audience at the moment, people who watch my videos regularly, and I hope that just grows incrementally and let it happen naturally, and whatever happens, happens then. And same with everything else. That's how I'll do things, and try and base it on a long-term project rather than small, you know, subscriber hits and all that type of stuff. But that might not be it for everyone. Maybe there is a case to be made for you're better off spending the money now and growing, you know, getting more followers who then stick with you long term. Who knows? Everyone has to make their own decisions. But all I ask and all I want people to get from this video is to be aware of the scale of this, how much money is being made from the companies, and how to deal with it as this becomes a thing more and more in the future. But that's it today. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, then click the like button. You can actually press the hype button. Maybe that's a way to bash through this algorithm and push this video forward. I think that's on the YouTube app only when you watch on the phone, so I appreciate if you do that. Subscribe to the channel if you like antiques and all that type of stuff. If you look at my other videos, that's what all my videos are about. Other than that, thank you for watching and I wish you all the best. Goodbye now.